This is a Guide Your Light network production, creating podcasts with purpose.
The one thing that I've done and continue to do is that whenever I get caught up in the noise of I want to do this and I want to do that, is like going back in on myself and really listening, like what's the answer? Because you already know, you always have. And so when you go there, you take a breath and you tune back into your own inner landscape and your inner teacher, that's when the magic happens.
Welcome to Well Worth It, a health and wellness podcast. My name is Mirella and I am your host. I am a wellness coach, vocalist, soulna, sound and energy healing practitioner, and sound healing facilitator. In 2015, at the age of 31, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, a condition I was told might lead to a disability that had no cause or cure. I was given no hope of recovery. However, through countless hours of researching and choosing to take control back of my own health, I found different perspectives and found that this was simply not true. On this podcast, I will share what I have learned and implemented along the way for my health and wellness since my diagnosis that has kept me well and thriving. It is my mission to empower, inspire, and teach you how to play an active role in your health too. Investing in your own health and wellness is truly well worth it. I know this firsthand. So if you are someone who is experiencing symptoms, dealing with an unknown diagnosis, chronic illness, disease or condition, or you simply want to learn how you can get back in the driver's seat of your health, this is for you. It is my obligation to share with you that the information shared on this podcast is purely for educational purposes only. All information is based on my own personal experience and represents my opinion and the opinions of my guests. It is not intended to replace the necessary measures of your primary healthcare providers, therefore should not be taken as medical advice. Kira Ostwald is an energy healer and yoga teacher who specialises in recovery and wellness coaching. She is passionate about guiding people to find their way back to themselves through yoga, breathwork, meditation, and recovery coaching. Kira has been teaching yoga for almost 10 years, traveling globally to both learn and share the practice of yoga. Kira has completed over thousands of hours of yoga training in Sivananda, Vinyasa, Ashtanga, and Yin yoga, having taught over 2,000 hours of public classes and owning her own studio, Oshun Yoga in Melbourne. Kira is well practiced in facilitating safe and customized practices for any level of experience. Kira is also the former owner of Oshun Salon, and she is the co-founder of Chandra by Oshun. In this episode, Kira and I discuss hairdressing and the toxic effect of products. Kira explains what yoga is. We dive into the purpose of a retreat. We talk about chakras and cacao. Kira also shares some helpful tips to assist with meditating, and we talk about the breakthroughs that can be achieved through recovery and wellness coaching. Kira has been a huge part of my journey to wellness, and I'm grateful to be able to call her my dear friend. This was such a heartfelt conversation, which I'm so grateful to have had with Kira. Let's dive in. Hello, Kira, and welcome to the show. I really love to start off by sharing a little bit about how we connected, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So back in 2015, as you know, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And when I started my journey, I started working with a naturopath named Fiona. And so I interviewed Fiona on my latest episode. And at the time, Fiona was suggesting to me to start to make some changes to my lifestyle. So part of that journey was trying to eliminate a lot of the toxins from my body. And at the time, I absolutely loved coloring my hair. My cousin is a hairdresser and she would color my hair, and it got to a point where I thought I really wanted to do the best thing I could for my health in order to help me recover. And so I made a very difficult decision to stop coloring my hair. And I was on the search for a hairdresser who used certified organic products. And I remember asking my sister whether she knew anybody, and she told me that her friend went to Kira. So I ended up reaching out to you and booking in an appointment with you. And the minute I met you and walked into your beautiful salon, I was just taken back by your beautiful presence. And I remember walking in and feeling so calm, and, you know, getting to know you through that process has just been an absolute blessing. And I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today and really share with everybody listening more about the amazing talents and gifts that you have. And so I'd like to start off by asking you to share a bit about your story and what actually led you to become a hairdresser and want to use these specific products in your salon, because I think these days there are some salons out there that use, you know, great products that have no toxins in them, but a lot of them are still using just generic products. And, you know, the importance of using these products that are helpful to help you heal is so, so important. So, yeah, I'd love for you to start there if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure. So I'd always wanted to be a hairdresser since I could remember. My mum's best friend actually was a hairdresser, and I remember being young and going to work in her salon on the weekends. She used to pay me $20 on a Saturday, which, you know, I was stoked for $20 actually. But I didn't care. I just wanted to be in and around it and watch her. Really, I was really inspired by her, and so as the journey would have it, I just kept, you know, getting people's hair stuck in brushes and really trying to be a hairdresser. And when I turned 14, I got a job in a salon. And it was like all my dreams had come true. I really wanted to be in a salon. It was busy. It was fun. I wanted to do runway. That was really what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a hairdresser for models. And so I was like, this is, you know, the first step. And so for those of you that know that are hairdressers, and for those of you that don't, I'm sure if you've been in one, for a lot of us, they're quite stressful. They're high energy, really intense environments. And I remember initially thinking that was really cool. And, you know, we were around all the colors and I loved all the smells of them because it felt like I was a hairdresser and I was really fulfilling that dream. And then over time, I was like, God, it's so intense. I'd go home with a headache. I'd be highly anxious. Like, you wouldn't get to go to the toilet. You wouldn't have lunch breaks. You'd be like surviving on air. Sometimes you might have had some water or something like that. But really, it was full on. And so because I was holding on to the hope of my dream, I tried not to see that. I was like, you know, it's such a beautiful thing to do. Just keep going. But I started to get quite unwell and notice, I guess, you know, it wasn't straight away, but within a couple of years of my apprenticeship, I had psoriasis on my hands. I've always been an asthmatic, and I started to have some flare-ups of that and just all these different things. And I was like, it'll be fine, keep going. And kind of not listening to that. And then it's really funny because I decided, you know, I worked in 21 salons by the time I finished my hairdressing apprenticeship, just because it was so intense, and couldn't really find anyone that understood me totally. And yeah, that's a really long story. But anyway, I finally finished my apprenticeship and decided to go out on my own. And it was about then that I went, there's got to be another way. There has to be a way that we can use products that aren't as smelly, for lack of better terms. I was like, they're really intense to smell, that, you know. And then I started to think, they can't be that good for you. You know, it was really the first time I went smelling them and putting them all over your hands. And I had, you know, this psoriasis and my asthma had been flaring up. And I actually spoke to my mum's best friend, who's still a hairdresser. She's never given it up all these years. And she spoke about her asthma and how she would have intense flare-ups from the chemicals, and how she'd started to look into making her own or doing something to change, you know, how much, because she was doing 5 days a week. And obviously sometimes she'd be out for weeks with asthma. And so I looked into it. I started to just research. I typed in organic, and I remember having a meeting with someone, And he came out and he put them all in front of me and he said, but they're not actually organic. And I was like, I'm so confused. It's like, it was called, I actually don't remember, but it's organic something. And I was like, oh, that's weird. And then I kept looking and I found Naturally. And anyway, they're certified organic products. And it was about then that I found out I was pregnant. So it was really interesting because it had taken me quite some time to get to that point. Then I got them in the salon. Then I found out I was pregnant. And so it's not actually recommended to work in a hairdressing salon in your first trimester because the chemicals are so intense. We're inhaling them and of course, it's not good for the baby. So it just happened to be that I could continue to work with them because I was using certified organic products. So yeah, I guess that in a very long nutshell, that's how I came to use organic products.
Wow, that is so amazing. I actually didn't know that. I didn't know that journey. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I think it is so important, to when we actually get that, light bulb moment that, hang on, this just doesn't seem right, to actually follow that and then look into that further, which is what you did, and you did the research around it. And I'm so grateful you did that, because when I was looking for someone who used certified organic products, I found someone. So thank you so, so much for doing that. And, that just going down that process led me down a new path, because, we've now been friends for, I think it's 5 years, because it was 5 years back then, that I actually started to, start to make some changes to my lifestyle. And I remember, as I said, walking into your salon and having that beautiful presence. And I think it was like a few months after I actually started seeing you and, having my hair done by you, that I walked in one day and I found a brochure on the table, and it was called the Journey Retreat. And I remember looking at it and then finding out that you were a yoga teacher. And I couldn't believe it, because at the time, as I mentioned, I was working with Fiona, and Fiona had mentioned to me to start practicing yoga. But I was so resistant because I was more of a Zumba and more of a kickboxing kind of girl. And I was like, okay, I know that I need to keep on top of my exercise. But, she was saying it from more of a stress reduction perspective. And so, I did resist it, and I went along to a kickboxing class and then realized that it actually wasn't benefiting me. I was actually feeling unwell from it. I thought, okay, I really need to do something that's not as intense. And so I did some testing around stress hormone levels with Fiona, and I had really high cortisol levels. And even though I didn't feel stressed at the time, I was going through a lot, my body was telling me otherwise. And so I remember one day when I received the tests, I actually went into my workplace and I said, look, I really need to take some time off. And, someone wise said to me, so once you've taken this time off, and that's all good and well, what are you going to do after that? And I thought, actually, that's a really good question, because, I can take some time off and I can feel a bit more relaxed and work on my stress hormone levels. However, it's not going to change anything after that. So I was like, okay, well, I actually went home that day. I sat down, I took a piece of paper out, and I thought, okay, what are the changes I need to make in order to go in the right direction? And so one of them was, reduce my work hours. The other one was try yoga and meditation. And I actually can't remember what the other one was at this point in time. But all of these things that I had written down, I had really felt uncomfortable about. It wasn't something that I really wanted to do, but I knew I had to do it in order to make a change. And so finding out that you were a yoga teacher was a sign. I was like, okay, you made me feel very safe. And I remember coming to you and you doing my hair, and I was asking you, how did you become a yoga teacher and what is it all about? And I can't wait to get into more of that in this conversation. But I remember coming in and saying to you, oh, the Journey Retreat. I never knew what a retreat was. I didn't know what yoga was. And I remember looking at it thinking to myself, oh, it looks amazing. It was at the Amaranth Retreat in Don Valley, and it was a weekend away. And I thought, oh my God, that's so perfect. That's exactly what I need right now. And so I was asking you a few questions about it, and one of them was around my dietary requirements. And you said to me, you know, my partner, James, is a chef and he will be doing the food for the retreat and we'll be happy to accommodate you. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. You know, you guys are amazing. And so I went home to my husband, Anthony, and I said to him, I really would love to go to this retreat. Again, not knowing anything about it. And he said to me, you know, if you really want to go, let's go. And I'm like, okay, cool. So, you know, I spoke to you about it and you said, you know, there's one room that's a couple's room. And I'm like, great, we'll take it. And so we booked ourselves in. And then shortly after that, I thought to myself, okay, I've booked us into this retreat, but I've never tried yoga. So I was like, oh, maybe I should go and try yoga and see how I go. And so at the time you had like this amazing 3-month trial offer. And I was like, well, might as well go all in and go for the full 3 months and I'll do that. And I remember walking into one of the classes. So you were offering the sessions at 2 beautiful locations. There was one in South Morang and one in Preston. And I came along to the Preston one. And I walked in, and as soon as I walked in, I was just like, oh my goodness, this is so peaceful. The aroma of the room was amazing. I just felt so relaxed instantly as soon as I walked in. And then, you know, I did the class and I remember leaving thinking, oh my God, this is amazing. I absolutely love it. I was like, I can't believe I didn't try this sooner. And so I ended up practicing yoga for about 3 months, 2 to 3 times a week. And then we retested my cortisol levels and they had dramatically reduced. And I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. So I would really love for you to share, firstly, how you became a yoga teacher. And then secondly, what is yoga for anybody that is not aware of what yoga is. I'd love for you to share what it is and where it's originated from, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'd love to. I guess going back to the story about hairdressing, so it had been quite a stressful job. And I kind of, in a very similar way to you, I was looking for a way to find some peace in my life. And, you know, going right back to the beginning of time, as quite a young child, I had lots of anxiety. I kind of had a bit of a rocky upbringing and had some anxiety and some, you know, obsessive compulsive disorder, trying to be in control of everything. And then a little bit of depression from time to time. And then, you know, add a layer of being a hairdresser and lots of stress and a high intensity environment. I was, kind of a mess. But that had become the norm for me. I'd always lived that way. And so I started to get quite unwell. I was physically unwell. I had lots of stomach problems, ended up in hospital a few times while I was doing my apprenticeship, which was some of the reason it took me so long to finish it. And so I started to do a meditation class. Once a week, I was doing this meditation class. It was in a hall with this gorgeous lady. Her name is Lotus. And I just remember thinking very similar to you, like, oh, thank God, you know, like the world makes sense when I'm here. But I was noticing that it was really only when I was there. For me, in that moment, it was like, I'm here and I'm calm, but then I go back to my life and it's stressful. And so I started to wonder, like, what else could I do? And I tried a bit of everything, to be honest. I was like, nothing, you know, was too outrageous for me. I really wanted to give it a try because I wanted to try and find a way for me to regulate on a day-to-day basis. Anyway, Lotus said to me, we've got some yoga classes coming up. There's a man coming out. He does Iyengar yoga. Which is, for those of you that don't know, is kind of yoga with like props, lots and lots of props. And he was so gorgeous. I actually don't remember his name. But anyway, the first class, I just kept asking him. I wanted to know. I wanted to know what it was. What's yoga? Why do we do it? And he was like, just do the class and you'll experience. And I was like, but I want to understand what it is. Like, why are we stretching? And he said, we'll see. And we got about, 20 minutes in. I said, I'm feeling really tired. And now I know that I wasn't tired. It was just like my body going, wow. Taking off a tight pair of jeans, you know, like here she is. And I fell asleep. It was like, it wasn't even Shavasana and I was totally out. So I went, oh, that was really weird. And then for that week, I felt pretty calm. And I kept thinking, it's really weird. Like, what did that guy do to me? Was it like, hocus pocus? Did he like give me something in the tea? And so I went back. I was really curious. I was like, I want to go back and understand what that was. And I think that week I got 5 minutes in and I was snoring. And the week after, same thing. And so God bless him, he never said a thing. He just let me come and have a sleep every week. And yeah, it was amazing. Anyway, the yoga just stopped there, and I didn't really look for it outside of that space. Life was pretty full. I was working a lot, and because it wasn't really at my fingertips, I went, that was really nice, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to look for it. And some time went by. Long story short, I had a terrible breakup somewhere in the middle, and then went and volunteered. Well, I'll go back one step if that's okay. So I went overseas. I thought, I'm going to pack up my life here. I'm going to stop hairdressing and I'm going to go and live overseas. And it was like the floodgates opened and I started to have panic attacks. I'd never really had them before. And it was like I can feel my body even just going back to that time. It's unbelievable because it was so debilitating. I was like full body every day, debilitating, couldn't get out of bed, couldn't have showers without my whole body being in disarray. I was like, I'm traveling, I'm, living my best life. I'm out in the world. I'm seeing all these amazing sights, but I'm having panic attacks all day. And that was when I realized that I really hadn't been with myself. I'd been kind of burying my head in the sand. Came home a little bit worse for wear, and this thing came up about going to volunteer in Indonesia. And I thought, oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to get away from my life, get away from the panic attacks, and I'm going to go to Indonesia. And so when I got there, we had our induction, and you had to pick which one you wanted to do, and there was different packages, and one of them had yoga. I was like, oh, I remember doing yoga, and I really enjoyed it. I'm going to do that. Anyway, funny story, but the guy was doing it in the back of someone's house, and there was this big funny painting on the side of and I just remember thinking, this isn't really like the incense and the candles that I signed up for. So I started to look outside of there. I thought I'll do the volunteer program, but I want to look for yoga elsewhere. And being in Indonesia, there is yoga everywhere, so I was in the right place to do so. But it was like this calling. I went, oh, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend the next 6 weeks doing yoga. And so I did. I went every day. Every day I would teach. I would do yoga in the morning, and then I would teach English. And then I'd do some more yoga in the evening and then go to bed. And it was just it was a yoga holiday. And it was about 2 weeks in, and I really started to notice the changes. I was like, I'd almost forgotten about the panic attacks. I wasn't feeling anxious, but the dark cloud that had been sitting sort of over me for years, I'm sure, had gone. And I was really almost gobsmacked and a bit scared, to be honest, because I went, what is this? Like, is this really how I could be without all of those layers? And so I persevered, and I got to the end of the 6 weeks, and I remember sitting in this cafe in the middle of nowhere, and I rang my mum on Skype was a thing then. I was like, hi, Mum, and we had a really bad line. She couldn't hear me, and I said, I'm just letting you know that I'm going to be a yoga teacher. And she said, oh, right. And I said, and I'm going to live in Bali. And she said, that's lovely, darling. You should just come home. And I said, no. It's like, it's not just, something I'm telling you. I'm really going to be a yoga teacher. She said, okay, thank you, darling. I'll speak to you later. And so I didn't stay in Bali. That would have been lovely. Should have. But I came back home, but I knew I had found my dharma. I was like, this is my life purpose, and I need to fulfill it. And so I went searching for yoga and where could I learn it, and wanted it to be I really wanted it to be authentic. I wanted it to be traditional yoga. I wanted to understand all of the philosophy, all of the mantra, and not just the asana. I really wanted to understand the whole yoga. And so I found this beautiful teacher. He hadn't long moved from India, and it was over a 6-month period. And he was unbelievable and so wise. And I think in a very similar way to me moving overseas, I thought I would do yoga and everything would get better. But actually, for some time, it got worse. It was really interesting because I really had to sit with myself, and I had to kind of, especially doing a yoga teacher training, you're really in it. It's yoga all the time. It's yoga for hours. It's sitting with your thoughts for hours. And I hadn't really done that for my whole life. So it was quite a quite a roller coaster ride. But when I finished, the one thing that I knew was that that was me, that's what I was going to do, and somehow I was going to share that with the world.
Wow, that is such a journey. Firstly, I'd just like to say thank you so much for sharing your story, because it does take courage to share that. And yeah, I just want to recognize that. I think through sharing our stories, we are able to impact others. And I have said this time and time before. And yeah, really appreciate you for actually sharing your story and being so open and vulnerable and honest around, your path. And I just love the fact that it led you to your Dharma and the purpose that you should be doing. And I'm so glad it did, because when I found you, it's exactly what I needed in my life. And you've impacted my life, and were a huge part of my journey to wellness through sharing your learnings and then teaching that. And I really love what you shared about, it being, what is happening like through that process, and, is this hocus pocus? Because I think a lot of the time, when you speak about these healing modalities or yoga or sound healing or whatever it is, it's considered woo-woo. And it's not until you actually do the research and the studying that you realize that there's actually a lot of scientific research behind it. And that's the reason why these modalities work and this practice works. And yeah, so I really, really love that. And, you actually speaking about your panic attacks as well. I can actually resonate with that, because I remember feeling like that too, and feeling like there was no light at the end of the tunnel. And I remember experiencing that and thinking, what is this? Like, I remember not being able to breathe, and they are just so horrible to experience. And it's so wonderful to know that there are practices out there that can assist with that, and yoga is one that is so beneficial. And I know you mentioned the type of yoga that you were studying, and I know there's many types of yoga out there, and I would really love for you to share what type of yoga you teach these days, and what are the benefits of each yoga practice or each type of yoga, I guess. Because I know for me, when I first started and I was, enrolled myself for 3 months, I tried many different types of yoga through your studios, and they were all so different, but they all have their amazing benefits. And I really love to dive deeper into why there is so many different types and what the benefits are of some of them. And, especially for people who, might have mobility issues or something like that they're dealing with, what would be the best yoga for them, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I remember going back to your yoga journey. I remember you signing up. The yoga deal then was $49 for 3 months. It was a good deal.
It was amazing. I was like, oh
Yeah,
my
I
gosh.
don't know how I was paying the rent, but did it matter? I was like, I'm sharing yoga with the world. And I remember actually you asking lots of questions, like, what is it, like back then? Well, what is it? And what am I doing? And it's funny because I think we're very similar in that way, that we both want to understand things. And that's exactly how my journey began with yoga. I was like, tell me everything. What is going on? And I think if we don't know, sometimes it's better because you experience it. But like you say, there's lots of science, behind these things now. And how beautiful that we're bridging that gap between the two. And so, in answer to your question, sorry to go off on a tangent there, but
Not at all.
I got trained in a type of yoga called Sivananda yoga, which is kind of just like a lineage of yoga. But I have gone on to do a Vinyasa 200 hour, and I don't even know how many thousands of hours I'm up to. I've done lots of yoga teacher training since then. Some yin yoga, some restorative yoga. I haven't really done much like Ashtanga or Iyengar, but I've kind of dabbled in just about everything else. And I think the really beautiful thing is that I feel like the yoga all comes from one place, and then they all are just a little, there's a little bit of magic in each style. And I think it's really important to find one that resonates with you. And I don't necessarily think that's like a forever thing. I definitely know for myself that changes week to week. Some weeks I'm like, you know what, I really need to, move my body. And other weeks I think I need restorative. I need something that's calming and soothing. And even just with my cycles, I'm like, right, well, this is where I'm at in my cycle. I need to honor that and, move with it. Whereas in the beginning, I was like hard and fast. I want to move hard and fast. Because like you, I'd always done kickboxing, or more like not kickboxing, boxing, and things that moved me quickly, so I didn't have to be in my head. So to go straight into something restorative probably in that time wouldn't have been beneficial for me anyway, because I don't think I would have been able to keep my mind or my body still enough. But now I'm like, they really have their place. I actually think for me in particular, I've gone more towards yin and restorative yoga in the last few years, especially since COVID. That was kind of when I was like, I actually just want to rest. I really need to restore, my nervous system and my mind, and I don't need to move fast. So I think it just, you have to pick which one works for you. And I think at the studio, the beautiful thing is there are lots of different options, and in a lot of studios, there's lots of different options. So I always say to people, go and try them all and find one that resonates, because I don't think it's, one size fits all. It really has to be a you thing,
I absolutely love that. And I remember when I first started yoga and I came to your classes and they were more traditional yoga, you mentioned that before. I just love the fact that you actually shared the Sanskrit language throughout the classes. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, I wonder what that means. And I wonder what that pose is. And, as I continued to come to these classes and I actually started learning what these words were. And I think that's really beautiful as well. And I love the fact that you said, it's best for someone to try all the different types of classes, because that is so true. Like, everyone is so individual. So it's actually a great tip for anyone who is starting out their yoga journey and that practice. So thank you so much for sharing that. And the next thing I'd love to chat to you about is retreats. So I'm just going to go back a step and talk about the journey retreat, because as I said, I actually didn't know what a retreat was. As I said, I booked us in based on the fact that we were going away for the weekend and we were going to be surrounded in this beautiful place. And, I was open to trying the modalities and everything that was being offered at the retreat. So what was being offered was yoga, there was yin yoga. So I met your beautiful sister Taylor there. And there was also, yin yoga was done by Lisa Ray, and then there was Reiki by Jen Kenny, and as I said, your partner James was the chef. And I'm trying to think, there was so many things at this beautiful retreat, and I remember trying every single workshop that was offered and just really being in the present moment and being in that beautiful space. And it was so, so beautiful. And again, there was a lot of like, well, where are we going, or what is this? And I'd really love for you to share more about retreats and what the purpose of them are, because I think that is so important. And, we do have a beautiful retreat coming up at the end of the year, which I'm so grateful to be a part of, and never thought that I'd be co-facilitating a retreat. And yeah, I'd really love for you to share what a retreat is, if for someone that hasn't actually experienced that before.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, before I go there, I'd love to throw a question back to you, if it's okay.
Absolutely. As good as this conversation is, I'm going to interrupt for a quick minute to share what I am excited about. And this is the Festival of Sound Healing, which is brought to you by the Boho Lux Market and is being held at the stunning Royal Exhibition Building in Kelton from the 18th of August to the 20th of August 2023. And I am so excited to share that I will be offering mini one-on-one sauna sound healing energy sessions across the weekend, as well as a free sacred sound journey at 2 p.m. p.m. on Saturday the 19th of August and at 11 a.m. on Sunday the 20th of August. You will have the opportunity to enjoy a guided group meditation, some vocal toning, then relax with the sacred sound instruments and the beautiful medicine drums. Find your inner peace with free cacao ceremonies, meditations and sound healings across the whole weekend. Come and enjoy this time of peace and alignment. You can also browse Melbourne's new talents as well as visit local favourite designers and creatives. From fashion and accessories, homewares through to petwares and skinwear, vegan and eco-conscious products, it is all exclusively covered under one roof. How amazing is that? You can also come and check out the Boho Luxe fashion show or simply relax in their bohemian, wedding-style chill-out areas. Then grab a drink, some fresh local eats and relax to the sound of live music with grass under your toes or discover your creative side in one of the workshops. And if you're engaged to be married or planning an event, check out the Boho Luxe Bride, which is the Boho Luxe sister event which runs collectively with the design market. Melbourne, you are truly in for a treat. Once again, this event is being held on Friday the 18th of August from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m, Saturday 19th of August from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m, and Sunday the 20th of August from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. I truly cannot wait for this amazing weekend. Come down and say hi. I would love to see you there.
How did you feel at the end of the journey, the end of the 2 days?
I felt amazing. Being able to, as I said, I was very open-minded. It allowed me to just explore myself a bit further. And, there was a lot of questions asked throughout that process. It was the first time I had actually experienced sound healing. And I was like, oh, what is this? And, and that led to other things through my journey and, which I will share at some other point. But it made me feel like I knew myself a little bit better and I was able to process what I was going through, even though I think at the time I feel like I was being very open to what was being offered. I still, looking back now and knowing the work that I've done along the way, I was still very closed off. Mm-hmm. And I think that's fine, especially when you're, starting your journey. There's no judgment around that. Everyone's different and everyone heals in their own way. And yeah, I think it was an interesting feeling because I had, basically roped my husband into going into this retreat. And then we were
him into being the fireman.
Sorry, you cut out. What was that?
We roped him into being the fireman.
Oh, yes. Yes, that's right. Both Lisa and Anthony were, making sure the fire was happening. Yes, that's right. Yeah. And, we'd gone from, going, okay, let's go. And then, doing these yoga classes and going, what are we doing? And so it was a beautiful experience for me personally, for my journey. But it was also really beautiful because I got to share it with Anthony. And, he's always been by my side throughout the whole journey. And it was just really beautiful for him to have that space too, to, look at his own journey as well. So, yeah, it was really, really beautiful. And I think the other big thing that stood out for me was being surrounded by like-minded people. Like, I have become friends with the majority of the people that I met at that retreat, and we've got these beautiful friendships now, and I feel so grateful for that. And just being surrounded by beautiful people and being in community, I think that's the biggest thing also with your studio and what you offer, Kira. I think, for everyone that goes into Oshun Yoga Studio, which we'll talk more about as well, like I think the biggest thing is the community. Like, you walk in and everybody loves being there and everybody loves chatting. And, if you haven't seen someone for a while, it's like, oh, where have you been? It's like, it feels strange. So it's, just being in that community. And I remember being welcomed with warmth and smiles, and it was just a beautiful retreat, and I feel so grateful for that.
Thank you for answering. I wanted to hear it from you because it was your first, and like you say, we're about to run one together in November, so that's just amazing.
Thanks for asking. Sorry, I was just going to say thank you for asking the question. Like, that's I'm happy that you did.
Thanks for answering it. I guess in answer to your question, so a retreat, I mean, in those early stages, I mean, the journey was the OG. I'd done lots of day retreats, and then that was our first weekend retreat. And Lisa Ray, who's heaven on earth, she and I got together and decided that we'd do a weekend. And I said, I found this really beautiful venue, and so it was actually our first retreat, and yeah, it was so beautiful.
I didn't know that was your first retreat. Really?
First weekend retreat. Yeah, we've done lots of day retreats, but we were like, we want people
weekend
to go
retreat.
all in.
Yeah,
we want people to go all in. And I think that I probably didn't tell you that in the salon. Like, hey, this is my first retreat, please come.
No, but you obviously had a lot of experience already, so
yeah. Well, and I think the beauty of the day retreats and the reason that they came to be born was that we felt like we couldn't really, well, I'll speak for myself, that we couldn't really share, I still keep saying we, with people, in a 1 hour class, you get so much goodness for sure, but anything extra, there wasn't time for it. And so that's why the journey day retreat came to be. We're like, we want to take people on a journey. We want it to be a whole day of, and at the time, the journey was about the chakras. It was about going through the 7 energy centers and working with each one of them, and doing practices that helped to facilitate that. And so after we'd done, I don't know how many day retreats we did. I mean, you know what? A day is not enough. We need 2. We need 3 days. And so I guess that the essence of what it was, for me and for us at the time, was that we wanted to facilitate a space that people could come to, take off their lives for a little bit and really go inward. And in the same way that a yoga class helps us to really get curious about who we are, a retreat gives us a space to do that, but one step, 2 steps, further and deeper. And it's really to be experienced. I almost feel like there's not words that really summarize it. But I just think, and I'm really intentional with retreats about, and especially in that journey, I don't know if you knew this, but every meal was about the chakras too. So every single thing that we did was curated in a way that was like, we want to make sure that you feel grounded and you feel in your body and that you feel fluid. And so, yeah, we really, and there was obviously oils, and there was all these things happening, and it was all about facilitating an experience for people to really go through each energy center, but also to notice what they felt, in each practice and leave them with something. For me, I think the most important thing is to give people tools. And you spoke about this earlier. It's great to take some time off work. It's even great to just go to a retreat. But if you walk away and you don't have any tools, well, it was just a fancy holiday with some nice trees. So my biggest thing is, and I think since I've sort of come into doing more recovery and wellness coaching, it's about the whole picture and how can you empower people to then move forward and take tools away that they can do that every day. And I think that's the most important takeaway for me anyway when I run retreats.
I absolutely love that. And yes, I would love to touch on the chakras and the energy centers, because I know for me when I first started yoga, and even when we came to the retreat, that was something new for me. And I was like, what's a chakra? I never heard of that before. And I love the fact that it was all curated around that, because, knowing what I know now with sound healing, and, we work with a lot of the energy centers, especially the 7 main ones. For someone that hasn't worked with chakras before, are you able to give just a little brief explanation of what they actually are and, why it is so important to work with these energy centers?
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, I think it's quite a long answer. The short of it, in the way that I see it, and Joe Dispenza is amazing. If you can get onto any Joe Dispenza stuff around energy centers, I think that his explanation, especially the science behind it, is really powerful. And And I actually remember a very specific conversation with you and Anthony at that retreat. And I don't know if you remember this, but I don't know if it was you or Anthony, one of you came over and said, what are the chakras? Like, what are we doing?
That sounds about right.
Yeah. And I said, yeah, it's a really good point. I mean, you come to this whole retreat, I haven't actually explained what we're doing. It might be handy. And so I remember saying that, you can look at it from two ways. You can look at it from a really spiritual perspective, that there are 7 centers that all have a different, purpose or energy associated to them. And we do yoga to move into them. But if you wanted something more practical, that each one of them represents something. So, for example, the Muladhara chakra, which is the first chakra, is all about security and safety and being in your foundations. The second chakra is about creativity and flow and intuition. The third chakra is about, confidence and empowerment. And so I remember having this conversation with you and saying, so even if you don't necessarily resonate with the energy part of it, and that feels a bit woo-woo for you, these are the 7 things that help you to connect deeper with yourself, and you do one that gets to the next and so on and so forth until you get to the 7th. And that's all about really accessing that connection to something more divine, something higher than the self.
I really love that description of it. And I think it's also beautiful. Another way that you can also look at it is sort of like bringing that body back into balance and back into tune, which is, what we work with a lot with sound healing as well. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I'd just like to go back to, curating specific retreats, the one that we have coming up at the end of the year. We are co-facilitating that with Belinda from Restoring Wellness as well. And, that one there is all about, it's actually called the Rise Retreat, and it's all about anchoring and manifesting and rising. And so, with that retreat, there is also a cacao ceremony that is included. And I'd really love for you to share, because, you do offer and facilitate the cacao ceremonies. I'd really love for you to share, what is cacao? Why is it so powerful? And what are the benefits of cacao?
Yeah, so something that's very close to my heart, and pardon the pun, because it is. I always say it's like the key that accesses the heart. And so cacao, for a lot of us, people know it as chocolate. And I remember as a kid, having a breakup, a kid, you're a teenager, and someone's like, just have some chocolate and everything will feel better. And I didn't really understand what that meant at the time, but because it makes you feel like you're in love. And I remember one of my dear friends, he was always like, I'm a chocoholic, it's because I'm addicted to love. And I was like, really? And I just never really understood it. And the more that I looked into cacao, and recently, about a year and a half or 2 years ago, I did a cacao facilitator training with Audrey from Love Bean Cacao. And it was amazing. One of my girlfriends had said like that she was doing it. And I was like, I'd really be interested to understand more about it. And so I learned so much from it, because I drank it and definitely felt calm. I think it's different for everybody. But the more that I understood it, I came to realize that it's a sacred medicine. It sits in the medicine wheel, and it is directly associated to the heart. And so it's all about opening up to, serotonin and dopamine and all these beautiful, love feelings. But physically, it helps to regulate the blood pressure in the body. So if your blood pressure is high or your blood pressure is low, it brings it into balance. It has been used in ceremony for thousands of years, and really, for me in particular, and everybody's experience is different. At the time, I remember, everyone talking about it. Some people were like, wow, it gives me so much energy. And I was like, I just instantly feel bliss. Every time I have a cup of cacao, I'm really in my center. And so then I wanted to share that too. I was like, I want to share this as a way for people to really stop the noise around them and access their heart, because there's so much wisdom there. But, physically, there's so many benefits to the body too. And I'm really, I think at a stage in my life that I want to have both. I want to have the the bridging of the gap between the spiritual and all this beautiful, you know, there's so much in it, but I want to understand, you know, physically what can it do too. And I think that's why cacao is a really beautiful medicine and a tool for us to be able to access deeper states of meditation and you know, look after our bodies better than a cup of coffee in the morning. I have found personally, because I'm like, oh, I'd rather be in bliss than anxiety.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. So yeah, it is a plant medicine, isn't it? It's known as a plant medicine. And I know for me, you know, there have been times where I've had cacao and I've had like really fast heart palpitations, and then I've had cacao that actually makes me feel really, really relaxed. Or so it's really interesting. You know, there's different parts of the world that cacao comes from, and I think for anyone who is interested in trying cacao, it's just it's worth trying, and knowing that, you know, you can accept half a dose rather than a full dose if that's something that is of interest of you, just to try it and see how you feel. And I think what I love about your cacao ceremonies, Kira, is when you actually facilitate them, you really ground the person into the ceremony, and you actually, you know, are able to sit with the cacao and honor the cacao, and, you know, how it actually, you know, tastes and what the texture is and that sort of thing, which I think is really beautiful. And sometimes we actually don't stop to do that. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the cacao ceremony coming up at the Rise Retreat. And we have a lot of other beautiful modalities. Belinda will be doing the Yin Yoga, and I'll be facilitating sound healing and vocal toning, which I'm so excited about. I'm actually really excited about this whole retreat and going to beautiful Torquay, which, you know, the summer house in Torquay. So will be great. The other thing I wanted to speak to you about is meditation. So you did touch on that. You also mentioned Dr. Joe Dispenza. And I know for me with meditation, it is a practice. It is very easy for the mind to be distracted, and, you know, it is a practice. And I know a lot of people that I speak to actually don't know how to meditate or what the best thing is to do. So I guess from your perspective, being a meditation teacher, what are some tips that you can give our listeners in order to assist with meditating?
Yeah, for sure. And so it is a practice, and I think I've tried just about every I'm sure not every, but I've tried loads of different varieties of it, because I think, you know, in a very similar way that we spoke about yoga before, it's like it's not one size fits all, and it's really important that you find a way, you know, that works for you. And so in the beginning, I used to facilitate lots of chakra meditations. Actually, they were the first, because that just comes to me naturally, and I love to teach from that place. And then I went and did a Vipassana training, which is like 12 days of silence, which is intense.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's, you know, that's a technique on its own. And at the time, I remember them saying, you only focus on this one. Like, you can't do any other meditation. And that was a little bit bamboozling for me. And then there's yoga nidra, which is more like relaxing the body, you know, part by part. And so there's all these different, I mean, there's walking meditation. There's so many beautiful meditations. And for a lot of people, and myself, included, you know, in the beginning, I was like, oh my goodness, how do you meditate when there's so much noise in here? Like, it's a busy mind. There's 200 tabs open. And so that's why I think you find something that works. You find something that works for you. And I always say, especially with my coaching clients, you know, something's better than nothing. You know, Vipassana, they were really strict on, like, you had to do, I think it was an hour or 2 hours in the morning and the same in the evening. And I was like, who has time? And if all we're doing is doing it for a minute or for 5, but we're doing it still, then we can build from that, you know? And that's the beauty of meditation. It doesn't ask much of us physically, but mentally it's about quietening down the mind, so finding a way that you can successfully do that.
I love that. And I think what you shared is so true. I know for me, even when I began just using Insight Timer and doing, you know, 1 minute or 2 minute meditation. So that is a free app that you can access.
It is,
And,
yeah.
there's a lot of great teachers on that app as well. And, even the work of Dr. Jody Spencer, where he talks about, meditating 20 minutes a day and,
Mhm.
how you can change your mindset and shift that perspective within 7 days by just simply doing 20 minutes a day, like building up to that point. So, yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And once again, that message is that it is all about it being individual and finding what works for you. And I'd really love to talk to you about your wellness and recovery coaching, because I know when you first mentioned that you were offering this coaching, I actually didn't know what that was. And I still book myself in because I like to try new things. And I remember showing up and thinking, okay, I'm just, I'm here. I'm here to just see what this is like and, see how we go and take it from there. And I remember jumping online and you chatting to me through the coaching. And then all of a sudden I found myself crying for a majority of the session and found that I had a lot to let go. And so I remember jumping off that call and feeling so amazing. I felt like I had lifted so much from what I was holding on to. Obviously, I was holding on to so much that I actually didn't know I was holding on to. So I really love for you to share, what that actually is that you offer and who that could benefit.
Yeah, for sure. So um, that can happen. Some people do definitely cry like, where did this come from?
Definitely was for me. I was
Yeah,
like, poor
yeah.
Kira.
No, no, it's part of it, and it's yeah, I think a really powerful modality, and so the reason that I came to discover it actually was I had been having coaching for about 2 years when I started my course, maybe longer, with the same coach. His name's Steve, and he's the bomb. I really love him, and so I'd met him. I actually went on a retreat. Funny story how things align. I'd been to the Amaranth retreat, and I'd done a retreat with Mark Feely, who's a beautiful yoga teacher, and he said, "I've got this amazing coach. He's really great. Couldn't recommend him more." And so at the end of the retreat, I rang him and I said, "Hey, can I get the number for my sister?" And then when I rang him, I think we'd been on the phone for 4 minutes, and I was bawling my eyes out and went, "Oh, I think I rang for me." And so yeah, we came to work together. And going back to my story earlier, I'd seen lots of psychologists and psychiatrists, and they'd put me through all these different things as a kid and teenager, and to try and let me talk, and all it did was make it worse for me anyway. I remember just thinking, gosh, like I just feel kind of crazy after I finish them, and actually for a lot of the time it re-traumatized me, and I'd end up in quite a bad state, to be honest. And that's not true for everyone, but it really was for me, and I was finding it quite hard. So I stopped doing it. I stopped talking about it, stopped seeing anyone. So Steve was really the first person that I came to speak to, and I just remember it was like instant acceptance. I want to say is the word, acceptance of like, oh wow, like I can be here, and he really sees the whole person, just not just one thing. He really works with spiritual practices. He's a psychotherapist, and then he said his main modality is this recovery and wellness coaching. And I was like, what's that about? And he said, I actually think you should look into doing it. And I was like, oh, God, no. Like, that is just it's a no from me. I'm just going to keep coming. And, because the story I told myself was I'm going to just say it, I was too fucked up to ever help anyone else. And so, yeah, 2 years later, he said, this course is coming up, and I think it would be really good for you. You should try it out. And in our first session, they spoke about how it was primarily made for people in rehabilitation centres. And I was like, well, that's it, mic drop, I'm out. I don't want to work in rehabilitation centres. And I came from a long line of alcoholics, actually. And I was like, I don't think I can work in that space. I think it'd be too traumatic for me. And then some time went on, and I came to realize that actually the foundation of the work works because as humans, we're all addicted to something. whether it's being busy or, whatever, our phones these days, emails, being on top of everything. And so I realized that I was addicted to so many things. I used to always say my favorite sentence was, I'm not addicted to anything. And then I was like, I'm really addicted to being busy. I'm really addicted to, moving fast and having a clean house and being in control. And so, by the end of that training, I just saw the world in a different light. I really understood how I could help people in that space. And in a very similar way to what you said in the beginning, we help people by sharing our story. And so that's really what it was for me. And the reason that I think it's such a powerful modality is because it's not, linear. It's not just one thing. It's kind of whatever you're presented with, going, okay, and meeting the person there. And that might be through meditation practices. It might be through journaling. It might be through just hearing them. Just some people just need to be heard.
Yeah.
And so it's been such a beautiful tool to kind of to understand myself, but also to hold space for people in those settings. I love it, actually.
That is so beautiful. And I love that you love offering that, because I think sometimes, we can, like, you mentioned, you can actually think to yourself, actually, I don't want to do that. I remember when I said to you, I'm looking into sound healing further, and you're like, oh, you'll become a sound healer. And I'm like, no, I'm doing it for me. So, and then, things changed. But it's interesting, in going through that process, I think that if it's something that you're drawn to or that appears, in your journey, it's sometimes for a reason. And I'm so grateful that you offer that coaching as part of your offerings as well. And the last question I would love to ask you is, what is something that you have invested in or implemented for your health and wellness that has been well worth it?
Yeah, I didn't write an answer to this question because I was like, I want it to be organic. And I feel like it's so many things. Always staying true to yourself. I think the one thing that I've done and continue to do is that whenever I get caught up in the noise of I want to do this and I want to do that, is like going back in on myself and really listening, like, what's the answer? Because you already know, you always have. And so when you go there, you take a breath and you tune back into your own inner landscape and your inner teacher, you know, that's when the magic happens. That's when you know what step needs to happen next. It's always internal. It's not external, in my opinion, anyway.
That is so, so beautiful, Kira. Thank you so, so much. I have absolutely loved this conversation with you. I adore our friendship, and I just want to thank you again for sharing what you have learned and being such an amazing teacher, and really allowing me to dive deeper into my journey to wellness, and, really try different modalities, and, even through the offerings through your beautiful yoga studio, Oshun Yoga, it is, there is so many transformative moments, and I just feel truly grateful for that. And I really believe that each one of them are truly well worth it. So thank you so, so much. I would really love for you to share how people can connect with you.
Yeah. Thank you. Before I go there, I want to say thank you because I love our friendship too. And it's been an honor and a journey to be here today. A journey. We're talking about the journey so much. I went there again. An honor to watch your journey is what I was actually going to say, because you are an amazing person, and I feel blessed to know you and to be in this space with you today. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, Oshun Yoga is in Reservoir. It's my baby, my first baby before my son was born. And you can connect with me through Oshun Yoga on Instagram, or Kira Ostwald, Oshun, also on Instagram, or kiraostwald.com. Yeah, thank you so much. I am, so honored.
Thank you so, so much. I've just loved this conversation. Thanks for listening to this episode. Life is all about the choices we make. You can choose to take control and look after your health and wellness, choose to love, choose to surround yourself with amazing people, choose to be grateful, and choose to be mindful and kind, as you never know what someone else may be going through. Choose to live a beautiful life. Remember, the choice is always yours. Has this episode planted a seed or sparked some curiosity in you? Let's keep the conversation going. Join our @wellworthit.podcast Instagram community page, or stay in touch via my personal page @mirella.petrucci, and be the first to know about new holistic offerings I have coming up. Also, please show some love by rating and reviewing this podcast on your favorite listening app. To your health and wellness. Until next time.
This is a Guide Your Light Network production, creating podcasts with purpose.